I'm here with Jonathan Young. We connected through Josh Lajani and Tim Kaufman, and he's lost over 100 pounds. He actually lives not too terribly far from me. And so, Jonathan, first off, thanks for taking the time to chat with me. And maybe we could just start off with a little bit about yourself and where you're from or where do you live?
All right. Well, I live up in the north east corner of Louisiana, and very flat area. But I'm kind of smack dab in the middle between Vicksburg, Mississippi, and Monroe. If anybody's ever watched Duck Dynasty, that's kind of our neck of the woods up here. And I work for the University of Louisiana at Monroe as a computer programmer, so I have to find ways to battle the bulge because of the sedentary lifestyle of sitting behind a screen and tapping away from day to day. I work in tech. I've also been a minister, and I've also been a teacher, a classroom teacher. So just a little bit of my, I guess, working life there.
Awesome. So I know that you've lost over 100 pounds. I think at your biggest, you were somewhere around 335-ish pounds. What was your expectation of food growing up?
You know, we didn't we didn't eat terribly unhealthy. As a kid, I actually grew up in northeastern North Carolina, from the East Coast, and my grandmother. I mean, if we had a table full spread full of vegetables and stuff, I mean, that was a good meal. So I didn't grow up, particularly just locked into junk food or this or that or the other. It was just the typical Southern thing of if I wanted some more, then it was there to be had. And so, and I'd have my grandfather, did it all in love, of course, but he was always, oh, you got to feed him. That's a growing boy right there. Well, at one point it stopped from growing vertically and started growing horizontally. And so that started the I guess downward spiral at some point as I got into years after high school and such where you're a little bit less active, but yet and still you still think you can eat just like you were eating then. And so with the years the pounds just started accumulating, and before I knew it, the reality checks were going to an amusement park and not being able to fit on a ride that I was like, what? It was just like a wake up call. Like it just never dawned on me that this sort of thing happened to folks.
Wow. Yeah, so I think I saw that, on your blog in your teens, you became aware of being bigger. I think you even said it led to some
Yeah.
emotional scars over size and body image. Would you mind talking about that a little bit and where those kind of came from?
Sure. The the biggest issue is one of the places I've learned that my body tends to accumulate fat is in the chest area, and so the the male issue, it is not cool for guys to have boobs, basically, and so. Because of accumulating that weight there, I was never ripped like Arnold or anything like that, and I could just, and so there were nicknames and junk having to do with being top heavy and big chested and such, and they never minded as long as I was blocking for football and stuff like that, but the rest of the year it was just a burden to bear. And so those sort of things made me very body image conscious and self-conscious about those things to where even now, having lost this weight, there's still this sort of mentality that I don't think I look good in things. It's like my wife's like, "Oh, you don't need to buy that double XL shirt. You're in a large now, or you're in an XL." I'm like, "Nah, I just don't think I look good in that." But so that's kind of the problem.
Yeah, it's weird how sometimes, it's like the body goes first and the mind follows in terms of, realizing kind of where you're at and where you've come from.
hmm Yeah, it's a powerful thing.
Yeah, and I think, did I see that you were a football player in high school?
I was. It was kind of funny because growing up in northeastern North Carolina, our prime sport was soccer, and moved to Florida for about a year and a half, and then we moved to Louisiana. When we moved to Louisiana, of course, everything was football. I mean, football was life, for a lot of folks. Football in the fall and winter, and then baseball in the spring. And I never was much of a baseball player, and so football it was. And I was built pretty well for it, for line and such as that. And I actually ended up my sophomore year of high school. I was one of our starters on our state championship football team as the D lineman. So, so that was pretty good. Of course, at sophomore year, I decided to cut that and pursue more academic interests for various reasons, small town politics, that sort of thing, and ended up going to the Louisiana School for Math, Science, and the Arts down in Natchitoches. And so didn't have the football anymore to get fitness in, but we did walk across Northwestern State's campus, so there was that little bit there.
Yeah. So what, from your playing football, you're a little bigger, maybe it's even working to your advantage in some areas. What was the trajectory from there to you starting to put on weight, post high school and whatnot, or even in high school?
Well, I it was really just I never took any concern whatsoever for what I ate. I mean, I figured, I mostly eat things that weren't that bad for me. I mean, I didn't have any typical vices that other folks around me had. I wasn't a drinker per se. I wasn't a smoker or any of those sorts of things. And so I was like, I never really thought of food as a vice or something that could be that bad for me. And so gradually you eat, and it's kind of like a drug with diminishing returns. You're having to eat more of it to feel satisfied, or it's no longer a taste of that is pretty good. It just mentally clicks, and it kind of a boredom eating, I guess, at some points when I just had nothing to do. I'd be watching TV or playing a video game or something, and I just continued to just munch away on whatever it was without even thinking about it, having no thought for what you're putting in.
Yeah, and I think I saw that at some point you moved from Central or North Louisiana to New Orleans, and that kind of sounded like it was a bit of a pivotal point for you, both in terms of personally and then also the weight. It seemed like that was a big change. Would you mind sharing about that a little bit?
Sure. We kind of jobs locally dried up for me in my early married life, and through some connections, one of the most promising opportunities opened up to be down in New Orleans. Well, it was working as a programmer, software engineer. So this was one of the first times that I worked at something where I really was just kind of sitting at a desk during my working hours. And so that amount of activity of being up on my feet like I had been as a teacher earlier and some other things was not there. And so if I had a step count of maybe about 7,500 to 8,000, I'm just estimating here. Back then, prior, I was probably down to maybe 3,000 steps in a day or less. Started the seminary, and then so you're doing graduate school work, and so that's even more time behind a desk, reading and writing papers and that sort of thing. And so it just accumulated more and more time that I was just not being active. And, the body doesn't necessarily reset to think, oh, well, I don't need less calories now because I'm not doing as much. It's just like, hey, this food is good. It's here. It's present. And, New Orleans is no want for good food. I mean, it's right there to be had at any and every level. I mean, be it fast food, casual dining, or formal stuff. I mean, you can find something and it's nice and it's good and it's well presented and there's plenty more of it. And so it just kind of snowballed, and it was somewhere within that point where we had some friends from college that he had gotten bigger over the years too, and we had kind of decided we were going to do one of these New Year's resolution thing as a pair of couples and say, all right, well, let's step on the scale. And that was when I saw that big 335 number, and I was like, whoa, what happened? Because, all through that younger life, it had been like 200s, okay. Even when I was a football player, it was like the low 200s, like 208, I think was one time in the football program. And it's like all of a sudden this number is like over 300 pounds. And I was like, that was things I'd only seen on like Biggest Loser TV show or reality TV at this point. And I was like, what is going on? And so it was kind of like just one of those initial jars to the system that, oh, I got to figure something out here.
And then did you, what did that pact or that challenge with those friends look like? And was that successful?
Well, it wasn't very successful because there was a great distance between us. Of course, hindsight being what it is, moving forward, we actually did do a thing again. Just about a year ago or so, where the prize or the carrot at the end of the challenge was we were going to go to Disney together as a pair of families and enjoy and such. And for me, that connected to a personal thing of one of the things that had hit me earlier in life was the fact that I had gone to an amusement park during one of the jobs I was working. And while I was there, I was unable to fit into the seat for the ride. And that just like blew my mind that here it was, I could not ride this ride because I'm too fat. It's unsafe for me to be in this ride. And so it kind of was a personal victory the time we reignited that challenge later on. We were not successful then because there was such a great divide and distance between us, and social media wasn't what it was to where we could connect and keep each other a little more accountable than back then. It was more reliant on us just texting each other, hey, I weigh such and such this week. And it's like, yeah, I didn't do so good this week. Yeah. It's like there was nothing to say, oh, yeah, you really blew it this week because we're both on the same fitness app and we can see, you probably should lay off the cheeseburgers this next week.
So I know you mentioned the bit about the amusement park ride. Was there anything else that was tough? Any struggles? Any frustrations whenever you were bigger? When you were at that weight?
Well, I was in New Orleans. I also started graduate school as a seminary student because one of the things I've done has been a full-time minister. And I got into a ministry program that was for up-and-coming ministry students. And the founder of the program, he had kind of an exit interview with us, and he said, this has nothing to do with your ministering to folks and all of that. He was like, but I just want to tell you, it's going to be a barrier to you in ministry unless you get your weight under control. That this is going to be an issue for you. And we had one little token to that within our curriculum. They had a course that was called Total Wellness in the Minister, because one of the concerns about ministers, pastors, people of that nature is the fact that they're in a high stress job where unless they carve out time for it, they don't get a lot of physical activity. And so because of that, this one 3-hour course that they stuck in the curriculum was to show you a few little tips and pointers about how to get some of that in track and to make a priority your health so that you can have a long and fruitful ministry and not be hampered by these things. And I began to see that in some of the places where I do ministry, while everybody loves the fun fat guy like the Chris Farleys and stuff, and it can do a lot for you personality wise to be that guy. It does a lot to you emotionally, going through the struggle of never being satisfied with yourself, feeling like a failure when it comes to those things. And it also, I don't know, there's like this undertone element of some people mean to, but not everybody does. But people just react to you differently when you're bigger within society. It's just like, some people will just be that look that just sort of says, well, gosh, don't you have any self-control? Kind of is kind of the undertone of that look when they see you and such. And or when you start sweating for no apparent reason in normal situations where nobody else is hot. Now I have the opposite problem. My hands get cold and I'm freezing when everybody else is like, no, it's comfortable in here. So, but it was just a multitude of factors that just like brought further and further awareness that, if I want to have even a normal life, then some of these things have got to get into better control, better focus, better balance.
Yeah. And then, I know it sounds like throughout a lot of this process you were married. Was there ever a point in time at which you and your wife sat down or had a conversation, or were there ever concerns raised about, where your health was or where it had been?
Um, Not necessarily in a direct or confrontational way. I mean, we had done the challenges together with another married couple we knew from college and some friends of ours, and we, to some extent, you can do some things to try to encourage the other person, but they're still an individual. They're still a person. They kind of have to make their own choices about what they want to do. And so I do my best to be an example, to push, to take on challenges, even when I don't necessarily feel like they're within my easiest realm of grasp sometimes. And sometimes I fail and I just keep going, take on the next thing that comes along, and just really just continue to care and love them and stand there and by there and support them through it until they have their breakthroughs, and hopefully we'll be able to celebrate those together. I think the harder part for us is with two kids. We have a now teenager, Lord help us, and an 8-year-old who's going on 80 at this point. But they I never saw a bad plate of food as a kid. Okay, now our oldest, he's kind of like that. He will eat what's brought to him for the most part. But the youngest, he has a very, very specific food pyramid. If it's not like a chicken nugget or chicken and dumplings, or or if it's not even presented in the way that he thinks that food should be presented, then it's not going to get eaten. And he will sneak something else at some other point in time. And so it's a struggle. It's a battle with those two, because it's like, they want to please you as parents, but not past the point of their own comfort and what they want to do as far as eating and physical activity wise and sort of thing. Being a computer programmer, of course, they're kind of video game junkies, and so so it's going to be an uphill battle in the years to come. So, but life would be uninteresting if we didn't have those kind of things. So
That's right. So did you have a kind of rock bottom moment, or a moment at which you decided to make a 180-degree change? You decided to kind of turn the ship, so to speak.
well, I had a lot of little places where it had just been kind of like I'd say the effect was kind of like when someone rubs their feet across a carpet and gives you that static shock. It was just that moment of bap, ow, man, that hurt, sort of thing. And then when we moved back here to Northeast Louisiana, there was a local 5K. I was like, 5K? Back when I was a younger, like junior high school age, I had been in scouting and I'd done a lot of hiking, and I'd always been told I was a fast sort of walker. Never really had much interest in running. So I was like, you know what? I bet I could walk that 5K. I mean, that's just 3 miles. So about 3 years ago in October, in fact, I got on the shirt of this past year's, but our local 5K near the Poverty Point Reservoir, they held it, and I decided to walk it. And I walked it in right at about, I think it was about 45 minutes that first year that I did. And I was like, huh, I did that. Well, you know, well, I'm still over 300 pounds at this point, and it's like nothing clicked yet at that point. Well, the next year, I decided to do it again. Hadn't trained for it, nothing else like that, but I was like, all right, maybe I'll get out there and walk around the neighborhood a few times to get in a little bit of shape for this rather than just coming at it cold, because that had been kind of rough. So maybe September, I may have done about 5 or 10 walks total over the course of September before this October 5K. And I shaved off about 3 minutes. I got down to about 42 minutes for a 5K walking it. And I was like, here was where the bug really caught me for the fitness thing, was because of being a small town and a small town event, I ended up getting third place in my age group out of 3. So, I know probably doesn't mean much, and everybody kept saying, you don't have to tell them it was out of 3. And I was like, it's okay. I was like, wait a minute, people actually get things for this. So then November came up, and I saw they had a turkey trot that was in Monroe, and I decided, okay, well, I'll try to do that. When I did that, I didn't get anything for that because it was only prizes for those, and being in Monroe, there was a larger field of competitors, and so kind of downhearted a little bit. But then I got to thinking about it. I was like, these 5Ks, they got these other races that you get a medal just for finishing it, because the accomplishment is the fact that you finished the thing. And so I was like, So I was practicing, had done a little more practicing at that point, and I decided, just on a whim, I'm going to walk a half marathon's worth, 13 miles. I was like, everybody makes a big deal out of a marathon, such. I was like, I don't care how long it takes me. It was Thanksgiving break. I got out there, and I just kept walking the streets until my little phone app told me that I had completed 13.1 miles. And it was probably near about 3 hours or more that it took me to do all that. But I was like, that wasn't too bad. So then I devised this plan in my head. I was like, you know what? I could probably stay on this path of fitness and working out if I had me a goal in mind. And so at that point I said, you know what? I'm just going to lock in a race every month from now on, so that I'm constantly at least maintaining a base fitness so that I can do these things. I learned in Vicksburg, in our military park, they had a 5K that was a walking 5K. So it was race walking. They actually have course judges that check you to make sure you're maintaining walking form, that you're not breaking into a jog or a run. I was like, I'm a fast walker. Let me pit myself against some of these folks, because they may have some folks that really know how to do this thing. So I get out there, and I trained toward it, and I managed to get first in my age group, which, that was pretty cool. But then I look at the overall results, and I'm like 22nd or 23rd overall in the group. And I was like, wow, that I can actually do this thing. So I've kept up with it, and just have faced new challenges as I went along. I had some friends that were all about triathlon, so I've done some sprint tries. I don't know that that's totally my thing, but it's okay. I got another buddy who started running with me, and he's in law enforcement, so he was all about obstacle course racing. And so me and a couple of friends, one of them was one of the triathlon friends, we got together and we made ourselves a little Spartan team. And this past year we completed a Spartan trifecta. And I think my niche lies somewhere more in the ultra running. I've just gotten a bug for that, because it combines that ability to speed walk or power hike with being able to run some, but also being able to navigate terrain and being outdoors and being on the trails. And I just feel more alive in that sense, doing those sorts of things. And as I did this, it wasn't necessarily a focus on weight, but the weight just started melting off as I kept on this training plan, and I gradually worked into it. It started with just brisk walks. I mean, I would just make laps and walks for 30 minutes to an hour. And then I got to a point where at about 270, 275, I was like, let me see if I can jog a little bit. Let me see if I can run a little bit. And I was able to, get a little bit of speed going. And then gradually I've gotten faster and faster. And just this morning, two of those running buddies, the triathlon buddies, one of them was in town for the holidays. So we just got together and said, hey, let's just do a little run. One of them hadn't run since St. Jude marathon back in December, early December. And the other one hadn't since he had just done I think a half Ironman or something like that. And so we just got out there and we did 5 miles this morning, and just for the fun of it, just to get back into it. And so now I love it, and I can tell when I haven't done it recently enough, because my wife's like, get on your shoes and get out there and run, because my mood just drops. I get too far away from it now.
So I know that, you're, from our earlier conversation in this, it sounds like, you're constantly looking for more and more running. I'm just curious, I don't have kids myself, but as a parent, where do you kind of find the time, and how do you fit in your training amongst a busy schedule? Because I'm sure for a lot of people, that's a huge, whether it's a really busy job or obviously when you have kids, it's tough. Time's limited, and the things you're talking about doing obviously take a lot of preparation.
Right. It was crazy. I've had to relegate myself a lot of times to dealing with nighttime running, especially this time of the year, because of it stays dark until so late in the morning, and it gets dark so early. Like by the time I get home from work, it's already dark. And so once we get to that point where it would be time for the boys to be doing homework or the last sort of things before bed, then I can strap on the running shoes if I haven't gotten around to it yet, and get in a little bit. During the week, I can't do a lot of mileage. I mean, the most I can manage maybe is about an hour's worth on a weekday run. But then Saturday mornings, I can hit those long runs, and even sometimes of a Sunday morning, I can get a good long 2 hours or so workout in, as long as I get up for it. But it just requires that deciding to, okay, the extra winks would be nice, but one of the great advances in technology that's helped me a lot is the DVR, so that I don't have to be there to watch a favorite show. Like I've got a couple of guilty pleasures that I like to watch, and so I keep up with those, but I don't watch nearly everything that comes out as much as I used to when I was more of a couch potato. And so it's just a trade-off of picking those things and finally deciding that I wanted this and the things that come along with it more than I wanted that comfort and that comfort zone of just sitting around and slowly killing myself, and I've even actually found ways to incorporate some of that with the kids. In fact, they both got interested in taking Taekwondo, and so they're like way ahead of me as far as rank at this point. But I'm kind of like, I kind of want to show them the fact that being at a general level of fitness can help them in what they want to do with Taekwondo. And so I decided to join on. I expanded our just paying for the two of them for Taekwondo to a family plan, to where now I'm taking on those nights. And so we have a few nights where we do class together, and so I get to be in class with them, and we're getting to work up a good sweat, and we're learning some of the same things. And so it gives me a chance to bond and connect with them, and we're doing something fitness-wise. And so sometimes it just takes creative scheduling. Sometimes it takes that drive and determination that, man, I'd rather roll over and hit that snooze button, but gosh, I need to get 5 miles in this morning. So it's just, at some point, it's just, I can't really describe what flipped the switch for me to where it is, and it's not all the time. Some mornings I wake up and I'm like, I'm sleeping this morning. I'll just have to make it up sometime, or I'll just have to let that workout pass. But so far it's been pretty good. We've been able to balance it some. It's trickier when me and the wife both we kind of have to trade off on, okay, who's going to be here with the kids to let the other one have them time walking or running or whatever it may be. And so
2013, you're 330 pounds and you do your first 5K. This morning, you went out for, as you said to me, a casual 5-mile run. What else has changed for you over the last, 3+ years that you weren't maybe expecting to change?
at first, it was really hard dietary sort of things. At first, I was eradicating everything that I did fitness wise, with the eating hadn't matched up to the others. So then I just started on where a lot of people start, just the basic calorie counting. Just I have my little app in my phone, and I would just, to the best of my ability, log what it was I was eating. And I was just seeing how quickly I would burn up those calories during the day. And so just slowly started culling that back, pulling it back into something reasonable, because a good friend of mine said it this way, is you will never out exercise your diet. It's not possible. I mean, you can do so much damage with what you put in that you could run 100-miler every week and you still not make up for the damage done by the stuff that you put into your body. And so that's a place where I'm still learning, because even now, where I'm at, down in the lower 200s, I'm still not there yet. I'm still on the journey, and I know that the next big change is going to have to be even more radical diet change, considering the macros of what I'm putting in and what proportions and balance there. And I just haven't gotten to that point yet. But I'm debating it, weighing it, trying to make those options, because, like I said, you can't out exercise your diet. And I was reading an article just this past week, I think it was. Somebody had done a study of the folks, like I used to when I was fat, and those dreamings that you have, when you're wanting that magic bullet or that pill that's just going to take it all away. It's kind of like the old commercial, Calgon, take me away. And you want those sort of things. But then I read this article. It was talking about Biggest Loser competitors, like 6 years later, 5 years later. They looked at them, and a lot of them had gained back 90 to even 100% or more of the weight back. And what they had found through scientific study was that these folks, their body had now been trained to, at this higher weight, to burn even less calories. So they had basically thrown a monkey wrench into their metabolism and such. And so I'm like, that's a scary thought, to think that here, of course, they're living an unsustainable lifestyle. At the ranch, they're doing 7 hours worth of exercise and on a minimal diet that most people wouldn't be able to handle just for losing weight. And then they're taken out of that framework and trying to maintain what they have lost. And it's like you've kind of stripped the gears in the engine and the mechanism. And it's how are you going to maintain that with now a broken transmission? You're trying to continue on the journey, and you can't as effectively and efficiently take care of what you're putting in. And so I know that's the next step in my development to make the next push to where I would like to eventually be.
And then and maybe this kind of goes along with that a little bit, any life goals that you're working towards now, whether they're, physical goals, personal goals, exercise goals, anything that you kind of have in your sights for the future?
Well, I've decided to get more focused this year. Like over the last year, I did a Spartan trifecta, did the triathlons. I've done sprint triathlons. I haven't done anything bigger than that yet. I'm not committed to it. Um, but I really like ultras, and I like that community and the things around that. And so there was a race that I attempted last spring around May that's called Beast for a Day. It was a 12-hour race. And if you completed 7 loops in the 12 hours, which would accumulate, it's a 5.6 mile loop. So it was right at 30 to 40 miles that you had to do to if you accomplished it, you got this custom tool leather belt with your number of laps that you created. It's the cool brainchild of a guy that I've gotten to know through ultra running. And I came up 1 lap short last year. And so this year, my focused training is a race. Beast for a Day is going down this year. I'm taking it down. I'm going to get my 7 and more if I can, and so that's a goal that I have personally for that. One of the goals towards achieving that goal is hoping to kickstart the fires and get the diet things and other things in finer tuning to where I can get closer to that ultimate goal weight of sub 200, so that I can hopefully be even more effective in my fitness and my ultra running and such. I also have a goal for any lives or people that I can affect through my story and through what I've gone through. I mean, we're all just blind folks, blind beggars, helping other blind beggars find, the way. And so if I meet someone else along the journey and my story or my experiences can help them, then that's exactly what I want to do. And so, and those come in different forms and different ways along the way. It's like I'll hit a down point and I'll kind of like, maybe I have a down Facebook status about, oh, they're such faster runners and I just suck and all this sort of stuff. And somebody would be like, but you're so much faster than I'm even. And like, it's kind of just a reminder that, wait a minute, yeah, you're not where you want to be, but there are other people that haven't made it to the place that you are yet. And so trying to be mindful of that and trying to be a helping hand to those that are trying to come along and make their own way as well. Maybe it's just the minister in me. I don't know.
That's awesome. Well, what advice would you give to somebody who's at the beginning of this journey, who's, maybe where you were when you were 335, or, maybe for them it's a different number, but they're at a place where they know that they need to make a change. And what words of encouragement would you give that person?
To me, it's a matter of finding that thing that you were always able to do, but never really thought of it as work or exercise. It was just fun. Tapping into something that was enjoyable and fun for you that can get your physical activity level up would be a starting place for me, because it started to burn things a little bit when I would get out there and walk, because I had been in scouting. I had taken nature walks and hikes, and I had developed as a fast walker. And I had to get over a little bit of stigma. There's a little bit of a running community sort of thing of, well, I would just want to run a straight 5K. I can't walk that. Just let that junk go. It's kind of like, if there's something, if you were really good at gymnastics or something along those lines, then maybe your thing might be yoga, might be trying to get that flexibility back gradually. But find you a starting place with something you love and you can commit to. I know we say it about occupation and work, that if you do something you love, you never work a day in your life. But it's true of fitness too. If you find something physically that you can do, that it doesn't bother you to sweat doing it, it doesn't bother you that there may be a little bit of soreness or pain after you've done it, because you enjoy it and you enjoy the doing of it, or at least you can enjoy it long enough to where you can get to a point where you see progress. Those little carrots, those little milestones will start the snowball rolling back in the other direction, and start to pull some of that away. And if you can get some momentum going, then you can really start to chart some longer term goals of, okay, I want to be at this point in another 3 months, or I want to be at this point in another 6 months. Or maybe you put yourself kind of like I did. You put each month sort of goal. I said, I'm not going to stay motivated to do this running or to do this walking unless I've got me a race that I've got to do each month. And I know that thing is on the calendar and it's coming, and I've got to be ready for it. So, find your motivation though. I have a buddy that I met through running, Jim Fisher, who's in New Orleans area. And he has this little hashtag that he puts out there. He says, find your marathon. It's basically find that thing that just charges you up, that you can get out there and get doing. And I think that's the biggest to me for a starting point, is finding something you can lock into. And, some of that may connect to your old high school days when you were an athlete. Some of it may just be something extracurricular that you always liked doing. But I think we each have had something at some point that we enjoyed doing that was physical. We just didn't think of it that way.
And then if you could go back in time and give some words of encouragement to that person who was 330 pounds or so, is there anything that you think could have maybe helped you get on this a little bit sooner, or even just some words that you should have heard, whether it was then or maybe it was even, going back as early as high school, where it sounds like things kind of began?
One, I think for the really younger me, it would have been realizing that, it's good right now. You don't realize it's good now, but if I could have taken advantage of it when I was younger, it wouldn't have been as far a journey to come back to something decent and, closer to normal, I guess. But when I was at that worst sort of point, there's a thing they say in ministry and outreach, that it takes about 7 people making a good contact with a person to gradually help them to make a decision religiously or spiritually. And I think that same kind of thing is true for you to make a turning point in your life, because I can look back now and I can see that there were multiple folks, from that guy that led that ministry program to the teacher of my total wellness in the minister class to other folks in different ways. It took a lot of touch points. And I don't know that just me as one touch point would have made the difference. It kind of takes a community of folks that care about you to get you to turn the tide. And I don't know why that is. But if I could have been one of the ones that would have helped that, then I would have definitely said, look, you're not seeing it now. You've become numb to it, but there's a need to make a change. And let's just start with simple: put down the remote and take a stroll around the block. That's probably what I would have needed to say to myself back then.
And then lastly, where can people connect with you?
Well, I'm on Facebook. I think it's Jonathan C. Young or Jonathan Young. I have a blog, and it's a WordPress blog right now. I haven't invested further into that, but it's just cause you. Because with all that I'm doing, I just want to cause you to make the same type of positive changes in your life. And that's where that blog name sort of comes from, is hope that the things that I go through in my journey can help someone else along the way. Other than that, I mean, if you have something of a not so broadcast on social media sort of thing, I'd be happy to private message with somebody on Facebook or something like that, and connect with them further if they have some concerns or questions. And if I don't know, I will be happy to tell you that I don't know, but I will work with you to finding the answer, because I have learned from a lot of my ultras that I don't know nearly enough about some of the things that I do. So
Awesome. Well, Jonathan, thanks so much for the time and for sharing your story, for being open. And hopefully, I'll look forward to connecting with you soon in person, maybe even out on a race course somewhere.
Oh, I did wanted to put in one shameless plug for something. I'm attempting to direct my own first ultra race at a nearby encampment. There's a little Baptist camp in Alto, Louisiana, and we're having a 1, 3, 6, and 12-hour race. And we're calling it the RUNNOFT run, kind of a la Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, for those of you that are fans of that show. And so we're just as many loops of a 2-mile loop course as you can complete in that amount of time. Walkers are welcome, everything like that. It'll be on January 21st of this coming year. So just trying to do something to encourage some more ultra activity in our region and area. So I have just happened to think of it right here at the end. But,
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'll include information about all that. And again, I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate being included.
All right. Have a great day.
Bye.